Hi guys, I'm back again with part 2 of this video about my incredible breastfeeding journey over the last 2 years and 2 months, which started at the age of 48 and finished at the age of 50. For those of you who don't know me, my name's TJ. I had my daughter by myself as a single mother by choice at the age of 48. On this channel we call her Baby Star, or I'm starting to call her Little Star because she's no longer a baby. And I had her using donor sperm and donor eggs. I'm currently almost 27 weeks pregnant with the second one, a little boy, also from the same sperm donor and egg donor, so they're full siblings. And I breastfed my daughter from birth until she was 2 years and 2 months old. I'm planning to breastfeed him too, and hopefully I'll be able to. So in the first part of this video, I talked about the first 2 phases of my breastfeeding journey, which was what happened as a newborn in the hospital in those first few days, when, when the milk's coming in and all that stuff, learning to latch and all of that. And then the second phase of my breastfeeding journey, which was when we got home from the hospital, the next 6 weeks, which was a very, very painful and challenging part of my breastfeeding journey. And I talked about how I solved that, and I shared a lot of information that's going to be very helpful for you. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and watch it. I'll put it up here. And so in this part 2 of this video, I'm going to share phase 3, which was once I solved those problems and breastfeeding became a lot easier. But still a lot happened in that phase. It went for about 18 months of lots of different things I had to deal with. Once again, this video is going to be long because I'm going to go into this in full detail because it's very close to my heart. I can't really half share it with you. I either fully share it or I don't share it. And also it's going to contain a lot of stuff, a lot of tips, a lot of information that's going to be really, really helpful for you. Now, obviously, as your baby gets older, they're breastfeeding less and less. When she got to about 6 months, the feeds got shorter. And then, of course, once they get over a year, if you're still breastfeeding, the feeds are literally 2 minutes. I mean, with Baby Star, she's always done a long feed at night before she goes to sleep. But apart from that nighttime feed, most of her feeds really over the next 18 months were pretty short once she hit 6 months old. They get to the point where it's not you're lying and reclining with your baby. It's like a child coming up to you and grabbing your t-shirt. Some babies like just pull the t-shirt open and grab the boob. My child did not do that. She'd always say her word. She did not say milk. She said, not me, not me, not me, mommy, not me. And I was like, what is nut me? My whole family would all tease me, like, did she have any nut me today? How much nut me did she have? Nut me, nut me. And then one day I realized why she was saying nut me. I put her on her change table. I was changing her nappy. And I was singing the nappy song. I make up all silly songs. Nappy, 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 makes you happy in a poopy world. Beep, beep, beep. Like, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so I was singing the nappy song and she starts saying nut me, nut me, nut me. And I realized, oh my God, nut me is in her head nappy. It's actually saying nappy, but for some reason she says it when she wants milk. She says nappy. Eventually that changed to milky, but she was never like violent and aggressive and pulling my top off or anything. She would just come climb on me and sit. And when they get even older, they can just stand and just reach a boob and just drink. Like, it becomes easier and easier and easier. The thing that became challenging for me in that 18-month stretch, I never had any pain again. It felt fine. I wouldn't say it was pleasurable. It just was nothing. It was just, I didn't really notice it. I just didn't feel anything positive or negative. It was just on my boob, whatever. It was just like someone just touched me. It was just nothing. So you can relax about that. It definitely stops hurting and it's fine. It's completely just nice experience. You're connecting with your child, feeding them. But she always has done and always still does. And I know this is very common for a lot of babies, like to touch me while she's feeding. And she's gone through various phases, and some of them have been pleasant, some of them have been excruciating. I mean, there was one point, she was maybe 10 or 11 months, where she would pinch me. She just would go like this, but, with her little fingers, it was a little pinch, and I was bruised. I was covered in bruises, and it was painful. And you try and you don't want to slap their hand or anything, so try and say, no pinching, move her hand away. So she did that for a long time, and then that stopped, and then she went through a phase, which is still going, where she would find moles. I used to have a big mole here. It's no longer there because she scratched it so much that it basically came off. But still a tiny version of it is there, and it's still like her safety zone is this mole here, right here. Even now, I drop her at daycare, and as she's saying goodbye to me, she's crying, she touches me here. It's like, this mole is her whole world. Wherever she is, she's going to always find this mole. So she'd always be touching me, pinching me, touching me. I've had phases where I found that really hard because it's just like, this is so irritating. You get a bit touched out. I never found the breastfeeding uncomfortable, but I found being touched. But I'm very lucky she has never tried to twiddle my nipple or anything like that. That would just finish me off. I would not be able to do that. So I've been very lucky. But I did at one point buy some gadget that you stick on your dress. Can't remember what it's called. If I find out, I'll put it in the description. It didn't really help me, but it's designed for babies that twiddle the mother's nipple. And you put it on, it's like a little fake plastic nipple, and the baby can just play with it instead of playing with your nipple. And I thought, maybe that will stop her from touching me and playing with my moles and everything. But it didn't work because it's for babies who twiddle nipples. But anyway, if you have a baby that does that to you, I'll put this thing down in the description so maybe it will help you. Actually, one other gadget I'll mention that did really help me, I did talk about it in that video that I made about things that helped me when she was a newborn, the different products that helped me, but I'll mention it again here in case you haven't seen that video. It's called lily pads, I think that's how you say it. Anyway, I'll put it in the description. Basically, in that first few months when you're producing a lot of milk and they're having these 45-minute feeds, hour-long feeds, 3-hour-long cluster feeds, you can really wake up with leaky boobs and your whole sheets are wet. It's a nightmare. And I tried so many things. Like in the first 6 months, I was wearing little disposable breast pads inside my bra or inside my pajamas. Like, swap them out throughout the day. That was pretty good, but there was a point where this just wasn't enough. And I did lots and lots and lots of research as I do, and I found this thing called lily pads. It's basically a piece of silicone that you put over your boob, and it just stops any milk coming out. It just kind of plugs it up. And then when you're ready to feed, you just take it off, wash it in hot water and soap to sterilize it, and then leave it on the bathroom bench or something. Your baby feeds, and then when your baby's finished, it's now dry, and you just stick it back on. Done. Never had another leak. Never had to worry about a million disposable pads. I just used to use that, especially during the night. I think I wore the disposable pads during the day, and I used that at night. So that worked for me for months. That was a brilliant, game-changing, life-saving thing. So if any of you are having a problem where you're just having milk everywhere, just write that down. Or if you're pregnant, write that down because you might need it. Yeah, basically for the next 18 months, it was just a really easy journey. Lovely. She was someone who fed a lot. I mean, she was feeding pretty much every 3 hours, day or night. I know that sounds terrible, but it was actually fine. And I think the reason it was fine was because that every 3 hours thing really only started once she was crawling, when she was about 6 months old. The first 6 months, she was actually having very long stretches at night of sleeping. So she would cluster feed, have a really, really big feed, and then sleep for a long time, like 6 hours, sometimes even 8 hours. So I got lots of sleep in that first 6 months after having her, which was really, really important for postpartum recovery, because it's that first 6 months where if you really don't get any sleep, where you really, really can be really screwed, because you don't get to recover from the birth. Even in the earliest weeks where she was waking up every 4 hours, I was still able to sleep, for like a 3-hour stretch. Then I feed her for an hour, then I sleep for a 3-hour stretch, then I feed her for an hour. I was getting chunks of 3 hours throughout the day, and I was actually getting quite a lot of sleep when you add it all together. And the good thing with her is she was always pretty easy to put back to sleep. So it was really just the feeding time. Change a nappy, put her to sleep, put her back to bed. And she would fall asleep pretty straight away. Now, I have some skills that maybe other people don't have that help her fall back to sleep because I am a trained Feldenkrais practitioner. So I'm used to working with people's bodies to help them get out of pain, help calm their nervous system. And I definitely used a lot of little Feldenkrais techniques to move her little body when she was 3 weeks old or 4 weeks old, to rock her very gently and things like that, which probably really soothed her. I also really use swaddles. My baby loves swaddles. I know not all babies do. My niece, my sister's baby, hated them, but she loved them. So I always would swaddle her in an appropriate age swaddle for the age she was at. I was constantly changing swaddles as she got bigger and stronger, so it was always appropriate for her age. And of course, once she started rolling, I stopped using them. But in those first few months, because she was swaddled, I was doing little gentle things to soothe her. I was singing to her. I was, but she was easy to calm. She's always been good at self-soothing. She still is. Sometimes she would chew on her hand. She used a dummy for a lot of that. I would one of the things I did to soothe her, I can't remember when I started using the dummy, maybe at 4 or 5 months old, but I would do stuff to calm her down, and in the last minute I would pop the dummy in her mouth. She just would fall asleep. So because of that, I actually got a lot of sleep in those first 6 months. But then at 6 months old, when she started to crawl, she was using all this energy to crawl, and she was hungry. This baby was hungry. She was not waking because of sleep issues. She was waking because she was hungry. So I was having to wake up every 3 hours to feed her. Now, there were shorter feeds then, but still maybe only 10 minutes or something. But I'd wake up, feed her. She was still in bassinet. I think she was then in a cot next to me. I'd just get her out of the cot, lean back, feed her for the 10 minutes, do a nappy change or whatever, calm her down, put her back. She'd fall straight back to sleep. I fall straight back to sleep. Luckily, both of us are good at falling back to sleep. So it's really only being awake for 10 or 20 minutes, and I'd have another 3 hours sleep. So I actually was okay with all of those night wake-ups. Okay, so I just wanted to pause at the story about my breastfeeding journey to just tell you a couple of things that you might find helpful. So those of you who are watching, who are currently pregnant or who are currently trying to get pregnant or who've just got a newborn baby, if you are in a situation that's a little bit different from the norm, let's say maybe you're a solo mom or you're doing this by yourself, maybe you're at an older age, over 45, or maybe for some reason or other you're having to use donor eggs, you don't quite relate to all the normal pregnancy stories or motherhood stories around you, I have created a private online community. It's not on Facebook. It's on a totally different platform. It's a beautiful platform where we can really connect with each other very easily, and it's very private. And it's a community where women who are on an unusual path to motherhood from all around the world have come together and are connecting. We support each other. We do posts, we have chat groups, we have live circles, kind of like Zoom circles where we all share what's happening in our journey and we support each other. It's really, really beautiful. I've put so much time into it, and I'm on there every day, chatting to people, connecting with them, having DMs with them, giving support. So if you feel alone in your journey, or you have friends who are on a motherhood journey, but they're doing a mainstream journey, like they're not using IVF or they're not using donor eggs or they're doing it with a husband and they're just doing it a totally normal way where they can get lots of support. If you're doing it in a different way by yourself or at an older age or using donor eggs or something like that, using a surrogate, if you're doing it in a different way, you're going to need support because people around you are not going to understand what you're going through. So if you join our community, you'll be surrounded by women from around the world who are going through exactly what you're going through. So that's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I put so much time into it. It's a labor of love for me. So definitely go and check that out. It's mybabydream.club. Okay, let's get back to my breastfeeding journey. And then they got to a point when she was about 10 months old where, this is going to sound terrible, her cot broke, her crib broke. It was a faulty design. It was a horrible moment of my life where I came in and I saw that my baby was about to fall out the bottom of her crib. And the crib was quite high off the ground because I had a very high bed and I had it up on a whole lot of mats. So it was a terrifying moment, but I managed to get her out and she didn't fall out. And I was like, holy shit, what is wrong with this crib? Cot, we call it a cot in Australia. What is wrong with this cot? So anyway, I chased the company down and it took weeks and they finally sent a replacement. Turned out it was faulty. They sent a different style. But by the time the new cot came, 4 weeks had passed. And in those 4 weeks, I just kind of started sleeping with her on the day bed. I have a floor bed in our room and I had used to play with her on that. Sometimes she would take a nap on that or I would take a nap on that with her because my personal bed is too soft for a baby. It's a super soft plush bed and it's very high up on the ground, off the ground. There's no way that was safe for a baby, not even a 1-year-old baby. But I had bought a separate mattress to put on the floor, a queen size mattress that was very, very firm. And my intention had always been that we could play on that. If she ever needed a nap on that, if we did for some reason have to co-sleep, we would sleep on that. It was safe for a baby and she couldn't hurt herself. I also put pool noodles around the edge that I researched this since people have this idea of pool noodles under the sheet. It meant she couldn't possibly fall off. Even though it was still close to the ground because it was on the floor, I still didn't want her to fall off. So at the age of 10 months, this happened. And by then, as a 10-month-old baby, she's past the time where there's a risk of SIDS. I wasn't worrying about rolling on her. And actually, because she spent the first 10 months of her life sleeping by herself next to me, she has always been a child who snuggles me in bed, has milk, and then rolls off into her own space and falls asleep on the other side of the bed. So I get my own space. She gets her own space. It's so good. And I think that came about because she slept separately for those first 10 months. And the other thing was because I never fed her to sleep. I was really, really clear I was not going to get into the habit of feeding her to sleep. That did change later, I have to confess. But in that first year, I never fed her to sleep. What I would do was I would pick her up out of her bassinet and then later out of her cot. I would feed her. Then I would swaddle her, change her nappy and then swaddle her, maybe sing to her a few stuff to calm her down and then put her down and she would fall herself to sleep. She always fell herself to sleep. That's not a word, I'm making it up. I never had her fall asleep on my boob and then put her down. Never. She never did. Not once in about the first year. So what happened was after we switched to sleeping together on the floor bed, over those first few months, I got a bit lazy with that pattern because before it was easy. I would take the baby out, feed her somewhere, you know, then do this, do that, put her back down, she would fall asleep. I remember having a birthday party when she was 6 months old. Baby Star was starting to get tired. And I said to my friends, because I was about to sing a song for everyone, a funny song for my birthday, and I said, I'm just going to pause. I'm just going to go put her in her cot. I'll come back in a minute and I'll sing the song. And everyone's like, yeah, we'll see you in 2 hours. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. I literally would just put her down in her cot and she would fall herself to sleep. So she did. I came back out about 2 minutes, maybe even less than 2 minutes, maybe 90 seconds later. I said, okay, she's asleep. We've got her on the baby monitor. Let's sing the song. And everyone was like, wow, who is this magical child? But it was because she had from day one in the hospital fallen herself to sleep, always. And what my job was to calm her nervous system down and then put her into her crib or her bassinet, and then she would do the rest. So I was like really proud of myself that I had this baby that could just fall asleep. So when the cot broke, now I'm sleeping with her. Now I'm starting to get a bit lazy as the months are passing on getting up to feed her because I'm already lying down with her. So I started to just be like, in those every 3 hour wake ups, half asleep, just pull her onto my boobs. She would fall asleep back on my boobs and I just put her down when she was asleep. See, I started feeding her to sleep at a year old. Everybody else is doing the opposite. Everybody else, they feed their baby to sleep for the first year and then they're trying to undo that so that the child can fall asleep by themselves. I had a child who fell asleep independently perfectly and I stuffed it up and messed it up because I started being lazy and letting her fall asleep on my boob. So that was at 1 year old and she would still do it now if she was still feeding. So basically for the next 14 months, she needed to fall asleep on my boob. So I undid all of that perfect work from the first year, but it's okay because to be honest, I found it absolutely beautiful feeding her to sleep. And in that first 10 months when she was sleeping separately in the bassinet and then the cot, I was always deep down craving cuddling her. I was kind of wishing we were falling asleep together and falling asleep in the same bed. And there was part of me that was really grateful she was sleeping like that because I got a lot of sleep. But deep down, I really wanted the cuddles. So at 10 months when we switched to sleeping together in the floor bed and then I started feeding her in my arms at night or my boob lying down, like literally I'd just be lying on my back. I'd just put her on me. She'd be face down and she would just feed. And then as she got bigger, she would lie here in the crook of my arm and feed. I never really did side feeding. It never really worked for my body shape and my boob size and everything, but she'd always just kind of be here. And so until last week, making me want to cry, until last week, she was lying on her feet and fall asleep. We had this beautiful period where we'd fall asleep together. It was absolutely lovely. So I didn't mind waking up every 3 hours because at that point we were sleeping together in the same bed. I didn't have to get up or do anything. I would just wake up, we'd feed for a few minutes, and then we'd both fall back to sleep, and she'd roll over on her side, onto the other side of the bed, and I'd get back to sleep for 3 hours. So I always felt quite rested, even though I was waking up every 3 hours. People were like, I can't believe you're waking up every 3 hours with an 18-month-old baby. I'm like, it's fine, I'm getting a lot of sleep. We're waking up very briefly, and I fall straight back to sleep. She does too. It was beautiful. And I was like, I'm getting to snuggle and cuddle this baby every 3 hours. Like, that's how I saw it. Like, I know this isn't going to last forever. I love this intimacy and sweetness with her. It's beautiful. I've wanted it my whole life. Like, it's gorgeous. I don't need her to night wean. Everyone's like, when are you going to night wean her? I don't want to night wean her. I love these snuggles in the middle of the night. I fall straight back to sleep. It's fine. Look, if I was someone who couldn't fall back to sleep, that would be different. I would have had to night wean her, but I didn't. So as that time passed, as she was getting close to 18 months, 19 months, 20 months, she was eating a lot more food during the day. She didn't need as much milk during the day. So naturally those every 3 hour feeds pushed out. But at night, when I couldn't give her food, she still wanted every 3 hours. So we were maybe only having a few feeds during the day, but a lot at night. Okay, so that was the beautiful, easy phase of breastfeeding. In part 3 of this video, I'm going to talk about my final phase of breastfeeding, which was the phase of breastfeeding while I was pregnant, which I did for 6 months and was incredibly challenging. And I think it's important to share that in detail because not many women talk about the challenges of breastfeeding while pregnant, but a lot of women try to do it. And there are all sorts of challenges with it, and there are solutions, and there are things that I learned, and I'll share all of those with you in the next part of this video. As soon as it's uploaded to YouTube, it will come on here, and until then there'll be another video. But hopefully you found this video really, really helpful if you're someone considering breastfeeding. So I'm sending you so much love, so much baby dust.